I might say like, wow, I want to freaking kiss Kristen Stewart on the mouth. That is a fantasy, that is an attraction that I'm having in my brain. Do I have the ability to kiss Kristen Stewart on the mouth? No, she's married. Also, she lives probably in LA. Lots of barriers. But that doesn't disregard the fact that I want to kiss Kristen Stewart on the mouth. That doesn't make it less real. You know what I mean? Doesn't mean the attraction disappears just because the behavior isn't happening. Hello and welcome to the Eva Bloom podcast. I'm your host, Eva Bloom, non-binary queer late bloomer coach, inclusive sex educator, and community facilitator. Eva Bloom is all about giving you the tools and frameworks to make sense of your coming out journey and get confidence, as well as a little bit of personal storytelling on my part to help you feel a little bit less alone. When I'm not supporting late bloomers in terms of confidence and dating, you can find me reading a sapphic sci-fi or a fantasy novel, starting a new craft project, or playing board games with friends. There are new episodes of Eva Bloom every single week out on Mondays on Spotify, on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. If you want even more support along your late bloomer journey, figuring out your identity, figuring out dating, sapphic intimacy, I've opened up some one-on-one spots for coaching this fall, so you can work with me about all of those different topics, get clarity, feel supported, have some fun, spicy dating sapphic times this fall. I would absolutely love to support you. As well, please rate and review this podcast. Give it 5 stars on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, so that more people and late bloomers can find it. This is the episode that we have all been waiting for. Welcome to the bisexuality episode. Last week, we had an episode talking all about lesbianism, unlearning some myths about what it means to be a lesbian. And this week, we're talking about bisexuality, pansexuality, pluriasexuality, multisexuality, and why it's so awesome, why it rocks, why being bi is absolutely super queer, super gay. What are some myths about bisexuality that exists within the larger cis-hetero society, as well as which myths are done their time in the queer community, are far past their time, that we really don't need to be doing them anymore. That is all what is in store for you for this episode. So if you are a bisexual, come and sit down, come and hang out. If you are not a bisexual, but you want to learn how to be a better ally towards bisexuals, you also want to unlearn some of your biphobia, please take a little seat. And if you're like, I don't know, I thought everybody thought girls were pretty, but maybe I'm bi, just go ahead and hit that subscribe button, because I think the Eva Bloom podcast is right where you belong. Kicking it off, I want to set the stage. As a late bloomer coach, I work with a lot of bisexuals, pansexuals, queer people who are into multiple genders, because number one, bisexuals and pansexuals make up more than half of the LGBTQ plus community. Over 50% of the queer community is bi. So wake up, people. The bis are here. They're queer. They're thriving. So it's long past time to get over any biphobia or beef you have with the wild idea that somebody might be attracted romantically, sexually to more than one gender. It's time we get with the program. But for a lot of bisexual and pansexual folks I work with, this process of coming out, coming into your identity, especially as a late bloomer, can be especially complicated because you are attracted to men. There is this option or possibility that is authentic and real to conform to cis-heteronormative standards, to follow down that path. So a lot of the times you have had crushes on boys growing up, you have dated men, maybe you have a husband, and you're like, okay, cool, that like totally makes sense within what society has told me and what is true for myself. And at the same time, maybe you've dismissed the crushes you've had on girls growing up, the amount that you rewatch The Mummy, the amount of times that you are watching Sex Education, or honestly X-Files. That's another, I feel like, classic bisexual program, because nobody's told you like, oh, that's not just like, hee hee, everybody thinks women are attractive. Like, that's a crush. The fact that you want to be around your best friend all the time, and maybe when she moves away, you feel devastated, is because you had a crush on her. So it can be hard to not only understand your queerness in that way, it can also be hard if you want to explore your queerness more deeply. It can take a lot of bravery and strength to say, okay, I've been given the opportunity to follow down this path that is very well trodden, that people expect of me, but I know that maybe I want to explore my queerness. I want to date queer people. I want to explore what being queer means to me in my full life. Maybe in terms of like the partnerships that you're choosing, you're like, okay, when I think outside what's expected to me, like what do I really want in terms of a partnership from a person? So that can be really challenging. There's also, obviously, a lot of complicated feelings and myths and stereotypes about bisexuals. I cannot believe in freaking 2025 we're having this intense bisexual discourse. I absolutely know why we're having this discourse, because they want to divide us. They want to divide us. The right wing, the fascists. YouTube will allow all sorts of this type of content, but won't let me say it. But people who are queerphobic want to divide the queer community. They don't want us to stand in solidarity together. So it's really easy to like amplify any type of content that pits lesbians and bisexuals against each other, lesbians against trans people. They're like, ooh, the girlies are fighting, let them fight. So I think that's part of the reason why this type of discourse feels so prevalent this year in a way that is really frustrating, because it certainly does not behoove us to be gatekeeping each other, to be fighting each other about our experiences. Much more behooves us to listen and understand that we can be different and have different experiences, and fight for all of us to have liberation, even if our liberation and our path to liberation looks differently. So that's why I'm really glad that you're here listening to this podcast, trying to engage in some affirming and nuanced conversation. A rarity on 2025 internet. Okay, let's get into it. First of all, why does everybody have so much beef with bisexuals? What's going on? Why is this so hard for people to wrap our heads around, that somebody can be attracted to multiple genders? Whoa, crazy, huge. But I think there are a couple reasons in terms of when we think about why it's so hard for cishet culture and community to wrap our heads around. I think bisexuality is so powerful, and in the fact that it really stands against this binary system that we have that says, okay, you're going to be put in your little boxes. Are you gay? Are you straight? Are you feminine? Are you masculine? And all of the different roles that goes along with that. Are you going to lead this type of life or this type of life? It's a very white supremacist concept, this idea of like this strict binary, and like really penalizing each other for existing beyond that. And bisexuals really exist in this beautiful contradiction, this space of nuance, this space of questioning, of gray area, of saying, ¿por qué no los dos? Like, I think actually you've created a situation that isn't true here. I'm absolutely allowed to be both things, to do both things, to experience multiplicity within myself. Especially this idea that we have of demonizing queer people. You say, oh my gosh, like if you're a man who's attracted to men, then we're taking away your masculinity card. And bi people come and they say, so I'm attracted to men and women. What are you going to do about that? This whole thing that we were afraid of being gay, we can be queer and still have a wife and still hook up with girls. And what about it? It is very threatening, I think, to a lot of these structures, bisexuality, that you can be in the queer community and you can advocate for the queer community, you can be queer and still move within some of these like normative structures sometimes. It's very cool. Bisexuals, you're really cool. Did you know that? You got a very cool, unique vibe that I like about you. But yeah, and in terms of queer people, I talk about this all the time. So If you're a podcast regular, you're going to hear me say this one more time. Queer people have such a hard time recognizing that queer people can have different experiences, different journeys, and we can still be in community with one another. It is somehow so challenging to wrap your head around, like, oh, you're queer, like, you're bisexual, I'm in community with you, and you have a boyfriend. I'm a lesbian, I don't have a boyfriend, you have a boyfriend. Whoa, different of experiences. When the truth is that, like, there are so many differences of experiences. Difference is in terms of the way we experience oppression as queer people, different privileges that we have as queer people. Like, even within, like, as a white lesbian, my experience is going to be different than a Black lesbian. Yes, we share similarities in terms of our lesbian identity, and we want to move towards lesbian liberation, and our journeys in terms of, like, coming out and the way that the world perceives us and our privileges and our experiences of oppression are different. And I think it's really important to, like, recognize that queerness is not a monolith. And instead of, like, shying away or trying to be like, all of us must have experienced the exact same things, it's more important to be like, okay, what are those differences? And how can I use my privileges that you don't have to support you? And how can you tell me about what you need along these lines of oppression that I don't experience? So I feel like that can be a big, like, source of friction in terms of people understanding bisexuality. That bisexual people experience huge amounts of biphobia and erasure from both the queer community and straight community, and can experience a lot of privilege depending on how you move throughout the world. And that is not to say that every bi person moves throughout the world in the same way. If you're a bi trans person, or if you're a bi person in a visibly queer relationship, is different than somebody who's a bi person in a hetero appearing relationship, is going to experience a lot more privileges. So it's important that we don't try to create a monolith of any area of the queer community. I do also want to say that, like, biphobia and the unique oppression and violence that bi folks, and, like, the specific kind of shame that bi folks experience, and, like, erasure, is really bad. That health outcomes are really bad. This shit is fucking real in terms of people's lives and well-being. So fucking take bisexuals seriously and do your best to disrupt biphobia in the world. And bi people, I love you, and your well-being matters, and your health matters, and your queerness matters. You deserve to take up space in the community. So this is from one lesbian to the world. This is my cry to support bisexuals. With that, let's talk about some of the different myths that exist about bisexuality, specifically coming from the larger cis hetero community, but of course also can be perpetuated within the community, and also can be internalized by a lot of bi people and be like, oh wait, like, is that a true thing about me, or am I not allowed to claim the bisexual label for XYZ reason? So not only are these myths and stereotypes coming at us, but I think they're also ones that we can unlearn to support our well-being and our queer joy. So let's get into it. The first myth is that bisexuals don't exist. That, of course, all bi men are actually gay and all bi women are actually straight. I wonder if we're seeing a common denominator here with this myth, huh? That's interesting, that we always assume that bi men are secretly gay, all bi women are just doing it for attention, or are just exploring, or just doing it for their boyfriends. So crazy that we come back to the common denominator that we assume that everybody's into men. We assume that men are the center of everything. It's almost as if we live in a patriarchy. It's so upsetting. Yes, bisexual people exist. Is it so crazy to think that somebody would love women? Is it so great? Have you seen women? They're hot, sexy, gorgeous. And they're also, like, really cool people. So next time you tell your bi guy friend, like, oh, but he's probably gay. Like, no, don't do that. It does a disservice to everyone. Bisexuals are real. Another big common myth is, oh my gosh, the idea that, like, how can you be bisexual when you're in a monogamous relationship, but you have a husband? but you have a wife. What could that possibly mean? I think for some reason people have a really hard time differentiating between attraction and behavior. So let's break it down. Bisexuality talks about attraction. So what do you feel in your brain, in your heart, in your bits? Sexual, romantic. Are we getting crushes on people of all genders? Are we wanting to smooch? Wanting to go on dates? Imagine fantasizing little dates about people of multiple genders. That's what attraction means. And then behavior is the stuff that you're doing. So I might say like, wow, I want to freaking kiss Kristen Stewart on the mouth. That is a fantasy, that is an attraction that I'm having in my brain. Do I have the ability to kiss Kristen Stewart on the mouth? No, she's married. Also, she lives probably in LA. Lots of barriers. But that doesn't disregard the fact that I want to kiss Kristen Stewart on the mouth. That doesn't make it less real. You know what I mean? Doesn't mean the attraction disappears just because the behavior isn't happening. One of the examples people use is like, okay, like a priest who like swears like celibacy, his orientation doesn't disappear. Like he is straight or gay or bi or whatever he is. He's just not like having sex. Those desires still happen. I think it's really hard for us as a society to think about this, because I think we think that like our whole sexual desires are like the responsibility of the person we're dating. That partnered sexual experience encapsulates our whole sexual experience, when that's not true. You have a whole intimate erotic life that is discrete from your partner. There might be a lot of overlap in the things that like you choose to explore with each other, that your attraction towards your partner, all that is real. And there might be a bunch of stuff that you fantasize about that your partner's not into. And it's not their responsibility to be into 100% of the things that you are. That statistically probably isn't going to happen. So masturbation, fantasy, like you have a whole life. This myth trips so many people up when it comes to queerness, I feel. When we think of like, okay, like you're bisexual and you're monogamous, you're in a relationship with one person, like how can that be possible? It's like, that's so crazy. I have an erotic self that is beyond just my relationship with this one person. Or even thinking about ace people who masturbate or write erotic fan fiction. You're like, how does that compute? This person has an internal experience of sexuality that doesn't include sexual attraction to a partner and like manifests in different ways. So it's more nuanced. Or even in terms of being single, it's like, okay, you're a bisexual person, you're single, prove it. Being single doesn't mean that their sexuality doesn't go away. Or by people who are polyamorous, it's like, okay, do you need a boyfriend and a girlfriend and a non-binary partner to prove? It's like, what are you talking about? No, like, this is not the same thing. We're not talking about the same thing. Like, bisexuality does not demand a certain set of behaviors. It is about attraction and feelings inside yourself. Oh my gosh. I feel like I've heard this from some bisexual clients and friends recently, which is so wild. But this idea of like, oh, you're like queer now because it's trendy. I don't know if you looked around you, it doesn't look really trendy right now. And also, if we want to look up that very famous left-handedness graph of as people stopped using corporeal punishment on people who are left-handed, the amount of people who are left-handed rose. It's not because the lack of corporal punishment made everybody left-handed. It's that when you stop punishing people and shaming people for something, they're going to be able to express it. So as we see less biphobia and more queer acceptance in the world, there are going to be more queer people, including bisexuals. Also, we have this like such a wild idea that people who come out at 50, people who come at 40, that they're just sprung up. Now I know I'm bi, which maybe that's the case. Maybe you've experienced no other queer attraction up until this one moment, and now you're bi, and that's valid. And so many clients, so many people I've talked to, there's like, yeah, well, there was that one girl I had a crush on when I was 10. There was that one girl that like I made out with at camp. I've put a Katie Lang poster on my wall. Like, there have been signs. You have been bisexual the whole time. Whether or not you had framework or understanding or a safe place to express that, is different. But baby, you have been bi the whole time, and you are now able to be more vocal about it and maybe try and queer date and like all that stuff, but you have been bi the whole time. Moving into myths that I feel like are especially strong within the queer community, but of course are also in lots of places. One of them is that bi people aren't as radical or aren't as involved in queer liberation than lesbian or gay people. And whoo boy, ain't that a can of worms to unpack. Number one, the freaking biphobia and erasure. Like when we think of the beginning of the queer liberation movement, a lot of that stuff was like, bi folks need not apply. We don't think they exist. So how can people like be at the forefront or like create movements that we can like have records of if the biphobia and people get pushed out of those movements? Two, bi folks have always been part of queer movements, whether or not it's highlighted in history books or when we talk about queer history or not. There have been bi activist groups since the 80s. Brenda Howard was part of the reason that we have pride parades and pride marches. She helped facilitate, was instrumental in facilitating the Christopher Street Liberation March, which was a response to the Stonewall riots, and is part of the reason why we saw international marches across the world in response to the Stonewall riots. And she was literally a bisexual polyamorous woman who helped shape what we know as pride today and in terms of the queer liberation movement. And Brenda is just one name in so many bisexual people who have contributed to queer history. Another thing, not all gay and lesbian people are radical or are contributing to liberation. Let's talk about that. A lot of gay and lesbian people want to be very happy in terms of maintaining the gender binary, in terms of not critiquing capitalism, not critiquing racism. A lot of white, especially, I will say a lot of white lesbians and gay men want to hang their hat up and say, yeah, I'm done for the day. So again, so crazy, queer community, not a monolith. Yes, there are a lot of bisexuals that need to recognize and interrogate their privilege and move from being bi and just being like, I want to smooch multiple genders, to being queer in terms of having a queer politic and queering the way they move to the world. And that's not exclusive to bi people. That is something that lesbians, gay men, like trans people, every single person can and should be a part of that interrogation in terms of that and that journey. That's what I have to say about that. Another myth is that bisexuals hate lesbians. Oh my gosh, why are we fighting? We should be kissing. I feel like I talked a lot about this in the lesbian episode. We're different, and sometimes that leads to conflict, and sometimes we take the oppression that we face and blame it on each other, and it's not helpful, and we should kiss. Lesbians don't hate bisexuals, bisexuals don't hate lesbians. Let's kiss instead. Ooh, a myth is that, bi people are transphobic or not interested in dating trans people or non-binary people. That is a myth. Let's break this down now. Bisexuality is not transphobic. Bisexuality, attraction to multiple genders, whether that is like men, women, non-binary people, trans people. Some people describe the bi as in two to being like, I'm attracted to my gender and other genders. And then I would say in comparison, pansexuality is more attraction regardless of genders or across all genders. I've also heard a differentiation that in terms of bisexuality, somebody's gender does matter in terms of your attraction to them versus pansexuality is like gender doesn't really matter in terms of my attraction. But regardless, again, if we look at the Bisexual Manifesto, bisexuality is really a rebuke of binaries. And even if you're not into non-binary people, which I don't understand. I think we're pretty sexy, but like if you're not into non-binary people as a bisexual person, even if you are just into like men and women, that includes trans men and trans women. Trans men and trans women are included in that. So the more we know. Oh gosh, I don't know if I want to get into this. The last myth is that your boyfriend sucks. Which, sometimes your boyfriend does suck. Which again goes back to the idea that like, we gotta be doing more than the bare minimum. Just because your boyfriend isn't homophobic, like, sometimes we gotta dig a little deeper. And being attracted to men is not a crime. It's not a bad thing. It's not a default. It's not a flaw. Being attracted to men is great. Slay. men can be sexy. Like, oh my gosh, you're in a loving relationship who happens to be a man. That's awesome. Like, leave people alone. It seems so silly from a community whose slogan is literally love is love to like be weird about people finding loving, fulfilling relationships. So I think both can exist. Sometimes your boyfriend can be a little bit better. And let's not jump down bisexuals' throats for being in loving partnerships with men, because that's really nice. I want bisexuals to be loved well. I want bisexuals to be loved well. And that looks like so many different ways. Okay, I'm very excited for our next segment because I talked to a bunch of people about why they love being bisexual. And so I want to share that with you. I want to share their responses. And I'm also going to include a voice note from one of my friends who said some really freaking beautiful things about being bisexual. Before we have a little love fest about all the awesome things about being bisexual, I want to shout out our lovely sponsor, Wet for Her, which again, when we're talking about the difference between being bi or being gay and being queer and queering the way we relate to each other, whether that's like interrogating these norms about relationships or about intimacy, spicy toys can be a great way of interrogating some of these expectations or roles or scripts of how we're supposed to engage with each other in the bedroom. And one of those myths or scripts that we can unlearn is like centering penetration. And that can exist in any dynamic in any relationship, which is why I really love this toy from Wet for Her, which is called the Touch Me, which doesn't look like a phallus. It is a vibration and it also has pulses. So basically, it fits really beautifully in the palm of your hand. It's so smooth. All of Wet for Her's products are the smoothest sex toys I've ever experienced. And it has a little thing that pulses. It goes up and down against you. So it can be used all over your body, no matter what genitals you have, by yourself, with a partner. Very exciting. And you can use Wet for Eva to get a discount and a sweetie little from me if you shop at Wet for Her. So thank you so much, Wet for Her, for partnering with this video and for working with the Eva Bloom podcast. With that being said, let's talk about some of the things that you love about being bisexual. And will I cry? We'll see. So somebody says, it feels radical and anarchist and cool as hell to love without boundaries. I love that. Somebody else said, every relationship is a queer relationship since I'm in it. That rocks. Somebody else said, I love that anyone I meet could be someone I fall in love with. I feel free and authentic. That's so beautiful. Somebody said that we can fall in love with both main characters in heteronormative movies. I love that. Pirates of the Caribbean, Keira Knightley and Orlando Bloom, I'm kissing both. Somebody shared, I love being bi/pan because I fall for the person, not really their gender, and I love connecting with other bi and pan folks. I love community. It makes us happy. Another one from a beautiful friend, and then I'll also play the voice note, but they say, being able to see beauty in every human, regardless of gender, knowing I can fall for anyone keeps things interesting, lol, and being able to relate to straight and queer attraction, although it's always queer when it's with me, because I'm queer, obviously.
I mean, I don't know what to say beyond the fact that I do love being bisexual. I think bisexuality is so core to how I am and how I view the world, far beyond sexuality. It is just like a framework through which like I approach living life, and this life that like is so wrapped up in binaries and black and white thinking, and we're so socialized into good, bad, black, white, this, that, and categorizing ourselves in that way. And I think that bisexuality is just such a beautiful invitation to question all of those things and notice false binaries and lean into nuance and lean into gray area. And yeah, really just extends into every part of my life. Like I can't imagine not being bisexual. Like I'm definitely one of those bisexuals who realized I was bisexual very young. And it's almost like surprising to me when I find out people are straight, because I'm like, oh yeah, like this has happened to me so many times in my life where like I meet people and then it's like they come out as straight to me and I'm like, oh, I'm surprised. And because it's just so beautiful. I think it helps us just question everything and see that our world is just full of so many different beautiful shades and such a spectrum of possibilities. And I also just love my bisexual friends too. Like I love every bisexual that I know so much, especially as I've gotten older. Bisexual community means so much to me. Like, I came up in a time in like the late 90s and early 2000s where there was just a lot of biphobia and like really weird messaging out there. It's not like there's no biphobia now. There's definitely a different breed of biphobia, and this past year has been like kind of a wild ride for us who are too online, for sure. But for the most part, I feel like now there's just such beautiful like love and community and support among bisexuals and people who identify of like any multisexual orientation. And there's just more and more understanding that there's a lot of us out there, that it is real. Like, we're out there in queer presenting relationships, in straight presenting relationships, and breaking down boundaries on all sides.
Thank you to everybody for sharing the things you love about being bisexual. I'm just so freaking like lucky to be in community with bisexuals, to know and love bisexuals. Y'all fucking make the world a better, more beautiful, enriching place. And I'm honored to stand alongside you in the fight for queer liberation. As with the lesbian episode, I also want to shout out some different bisexual artists and creators, because a huge way of affirming your bisexuality, and as so many folks said, like finding community and connecting with other bisexuals can be so healing and powerful. So in terms of books, I love the books written by N.K. Jemisin, Far Sector, if you want a little sci-fi bisexuality. Lila Lee, love all of Lila Lee's books. She writes so many bisexual characters, dating men, dating women. Love her. Lila Lee, fan of the pod. And Casey McQuiston, writing so many bisexual books and main characters. Also love Haley Jacobson, Old Enough. I would check content warnings for Old Enough first, but also a really amazing read. In terms of music by bisexuals, we have Janelle Monáe, Beth McCarthy, Clairo, Meg Thee Stallion. Like, bisexuals are eating. Y'all are doing well. You got so many hotties who are making music for you. Please share more of your favorite artists and musicians who are bi and they can buy music and writing my books. With all that to say, let's move on to the segment of the podcast where I share all the things I am loving this week, what I am listening to, what I'm reading, what I'm cooking, and favorite creators at the moment. In terms of what I'm reading, I just finished a graphic novel called Leap, which is about two lesbians. They're unlearning compet, navigating toxic relationships in a dance academy. So if you are a competitive dance girly, or if you grew up in like a professional sports environment, and you're navigating queerness, I would highly recommend the graphic novel Leap. It's also set in Romania, which is really cool. In terms of what I'm listening to Lola Young's new album, her first track of the album, Fuck Everyone, Bisexual Anthem. Yes. I'm also listening to Molly Grace's new album. It is the launch day, release day that I'm recording this. A disco pop lesbian fever dream. I'm obsessed. I'll see you at the Toronto show if you're in the Toronto show. In terms of what I am cooking or what I'm eating, my girlfriend and I are actually going to spend our anniversary at a very cool Malaysian fusion restaurant called Sue. They also have a plant-based menu called Fat Choy, which I'm very excited to get into. And then lastly, a creator I'm obsessed with, lesbian icon Stevie Bobby, is back again making sapphic sex ed videos. Recently made one about bottoms, which it just like the production quality, like she's doing it like nobody else. So if you like this podcast and you want more sapphic content that's like educational and also fun, which I hope that this is, please go check out Stevie's new and upcoming videos. It's incredible. Without further ado, and hopefully before the battery on my camera dies, I want to say thank you so much for coming along to the Ed and Bloom podcast. I'm so happy to have you here. If you want even more late bloomer support on your coming out, figuring out your labels, feeling affirmed in your bisexuality, figuring out, okay, how can I embody my bisexuality and my queerness while I'm in a relationship with a cis man, for example, I would love to coach and support you. I'm opening a couple of spots for one-on-one coaching this fall, so check it out at evabloom.ca bisexuality.com/3pack. You get 3 sessions to book whenever feels good for you, and we'll dive in and help you feel good and supported. The Eva Bloom podcast also has a Instagram account now. There's only 30 followers, so I would love it if you would follow. That would mean the world. It's Out and Bloom Pod. We're gonna be showing some like behind the scenes. I'm gonna be doing more like vlog and personal stuff over there because it's a cutie little intimate environment, so I feel more comfortable. So that'll be fun. Maybe I'll show a picture of the restaurant my girlfriend and I went to for our anniversary. We'll see. But yeah, follow Out and Bloom Pod. You can also vote on different podcast topics, different titles that you like the best. So would absolutely love to see you there. Follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube, subscribe, rate us 5 stars. But until then, stay curious, keep blooming, and I will see you in the next episode. Bisexuality!